Something in deep space is awake, and for the first time, it's looking back at us. If you're listening to this right now, remember nothing you thought you knew about our universe will remain the same after tonight. Because far beyond the orbit of Mars, beyond the familiar comfort of the planets, something impossible is glowing in the dark. And NASA doesn't want you to know why. Before we begin, hit subscribe, because what you're about to hear is real, and every moment of it is being quietly buried. It began with a silent discovery, something so small at first that even the most powerful telescopes nearly missed it. A faint object drifting in from interstellar space, traveling along a path no comet or asteroid from our solar system would ever follow. An intruder, a foreign traveler, an object we would name 3I Atlas. At first, the discovery barely made headlines. Just another rock from the void, just like Oumuamua in 2017, just like Borisov in 2019. Harmless, forgettable. Background noise in the endless heavens. But the thing about the universe is simple. It does not make mistakes. And whatever 3I Atlas was, it had already made one, because it allowed us to see it. It was too bright. That was the first problem. The brightness didn't match its estimated size, and it didn't behave like light from a normal comet or asteroid. It didn't flicker. It didn't fade. It didn't react to sunlight. It glowed with a steady, unnatural consistency. And that made one thing very clear: this was no ordinary object. So the world turned its attention toward it. The Hubble Space Telescope captured early images. Dozens of ground observatories began tracking its motion. And then, quietly, almost cautiously, NASA brought in a different eye, the James Webb Space Telescope. Webb is not just a telescope. It is a time machine. It sees beyond the visible, beyond light as we know it. It reads heat. It reads patterns. It reads truth. And when James Webb locked onto 3I Atlas, what it found should have been impossible. The heat was wrong. The object wasn't reflecting sunlight. It was generating heat from within. Something under its surface was active. Alive? No, but powered. Instead of answers, the data created fear. Heat spikes, pulses, intervals that behaved like timing cycles. Noise inside the glow, as if hidden beneath normal thermal signatures, was something else. Something deliberate. Something transmitting. But then, something changed. In less than 2 minutes, the luminosity of 3I Atlas jumped by nearly 40%. No comet in history has ever behaved that way. Flares come from explosions, from chemical reactions, from dust and gas. But this light surge had none of those signatures. It didn't burst. It activated. And then the nightmare began. The object adjusted its trajectory, not by accident, not gravity, not solar wind. Intentionally, something was controlling it. Something was steering it. For the first time, humanity had proof, not speculation, not theory proof, that something artificial had entered our solar system. 3I Atlas was not a rock. It was not a comet. It was a machine. And now it was awake. 3I Atlas was awake now, and every scientist who had tracked its silent journey suddenly felt something they hadn't expected from an object millions of miles away: pressure. It didn't make a sound, and yet it felt like it was speaking, watching, tracking. And the strangest part, it didn't seem surprised we were watching back. NASA did what NASA always does when fear enters the room. They hid behind language. Reports used words like anomalous reflection patterns, thermal irregularities, gravitational variance, but behind closed doors and off the record, a quieter sentence was whispered. One that spread through teams from MIT to ESA to the Atacama Array like static on a dead frequency. Someone built this. The internal data logs from the James Webb Space Telescope were quietly restricted. Public access terminals were locked out. Large segments of raw infrared maps were redacted. Even universities that had access through partnerships with NASA suddenly received vague messages. Data under review, temporary access restrictions, please stand by. But no one was standing by, because there was something inside the heated core that no one could explain. Patterns under layers of infrared noise, faint but measurable, was something that looked dangerously like modulation, tiny oscillations in the radiated energy that repeated with microscopic precision. If this were natural, those oscillations wouldn't repeat. But they did. 8 intervals, pause, 13 intervals, pause, 8 again, then 13. Over and over, not binary, not human code, but structured, intelligent. All attempts to dismiss the signal as random noise collapsed. Randomness doesn't repeat at exact exponential shifts. Randomness doesn't correct itself, but this did. Every 37 minutes, the signal realigned, as if resetting, not drifting, maintaining. That was the moment the data analysts stopped calling it a thermal anomaly. They called it a transmission. It seemed impossible. The signal wasn't radio. It wasn't microwave. It wasn't anything we use to send messages through space. It was light-heat modulation as communication. Silent, precise, invisible to anyone not looking for it. That was the moment one man made a decision that would change everything. Dr. Adrian Kessler, a deep spectrum physicist with the ESA, did something reckless. He leaked a section of the 3I Atlas data to a private analysis network used by independent astronomers around the world. Within 12 hours, more than 50 private observatories were scanning 3I Atlas again with sharpened attention. Within 20 hours, translation attempts had begun, and within 30, something happened that no one expected. The signal changed. It acknowledged observation. The modulation rate altered just slightly, like a shift in breathing. Analysts around the world watched in real time as the pulse gained a third component. Before, it was 2 signals rotating. Now a third entered a timing marker, not a message, a presence. The object was now reacting to being studied. But then something else happened, something dark. Webb went offline. Not crashed, not malfunctioning, not glitched. It went quiet. Webb activity logs stopped updating. The live stream of thermal data froze. Then the entire telescope entered an unexplained safe mode. According to NASA, this was due to a micrometeoroid impact that required orientation system recalibration. But engineers from ESA, who were supposed to be part of the recovery team, later said no impact was detected. Telemetry from the telescope had simply stopped. That was the moment people realized something terrifying. 3i Atlas could interfere with long-range instruments. It didn't want to be studied, not completely. And yet, private telescopes kept watching. Something was happening to the space around 3i Atlas. Dust that had once drifted loosely around it was now moving in patterns, not random cloud spirals, not gravitational debris patterns. Like something inside the object was manipulating the dust cloud, bending it, sculpting it, using it. And then the light began to pulse in loops. No one knows who saw it first. Maybe a team in Japan, maybe an observatory scanner in South Africa, maybe a software engineer in Chile. But suddenly, thousands of people were watching 3i Atlas at the same time when something impossible appeared in the light. Coordinates, hidden in the brightness frequency, like a whisper in a scream stars. A map, not of where 3i Atlas had been, but where it was going. Because for the first time, since it entered our solar system, it pointed, not randomly, not drifting, it angled, and its new trajectory aligned with 3 locations, 3 points, 3 worlds, 3 destinations. It wasn't lost. It wasn't wandering. It had a mission. And Earth was point 2. The coordinates discovered in the light pattern were a warning disguised as a mystery, and the few scientists who understood what they represented tried desperately to keep the information quiet. But fear has a way of leaking through locked doors, and before long, rumors began to spread through classified message boards, encrypted observatory channels, and private aerospace forums. Someone had plotted the star positions embedded in the pulse. Someone had traced the path. Someone had calculated the next move. 3i Atlas wasn't just heading deeper into the solar system, it was coming for us. At first, the alignment looked like nothing more than an orbital path intersecting Earth's ecliptic. But that wasn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part was what came before Earth. The first coordinate revealed a strange convergence point near Europa, one of Jupiter's frozen moons. That alone triggered Alarm Europa was one of the strongest candidates for life in our solar system. Beneath its icy crust is a global ocean warmed by tidal forces, a world of water and darkness where alien ecosystems could exist. Could 3i Atlas be investigating it, or was it looking for something else? The second coordinate, the one slowly adjusting, pointed at Earth. The third was deeper, farther, beyond everything we've mapped, a destination unknown. But before anyone could process what was happening, something else shifted slightly, but enough that every observatory noticed. 3i Atlas was accelerating. Natural objects do not accelerate in deep space. They can be pulled, deflected, slowed, but they do not speed up on their own. There was no gravity well in front of it, no nearby object to sling it forward. Yet, according to every measurement, the speed of 3i Atlas was rising tiny increments at first, then a noticeable climb. It was using propulsion. Something inside was driving it forward without releasing any visible exhaust. No jets, no radiation burst, no chemical signature. This wasn't primitive thrust. This was field propulsion. The kind of technology that exists in only 2 places classified aerospace experiments and science fiction. And we were watching it in real time. NASA, ESA, and JAXA immediately opened a joint observation channel under extreme data security. But by then, major governments were awake, watching silently. There were no emergency broadcasts, no late-night announcements, no warning to the public. Everything moved into shadow, and when information goes dark, humanity enters its most dangerous state, not fear, but speculation. Inside a sealed research facility in Madrid, a group called Project Helios began decoding the 3-eye atlas signal not as language but as behavior. The pulses were not communication, they were command, telemetry packets, internal system checks. Something wasn't talking out. Something was talking in. Someone or something was controlling 3-eye atlas. That changed everything. Until that moment, some still hoped it was a dead probe, an abandoned relic scanning space on autopilot. But control means activity. Activity means intention. And intention means a mission that is still in progress. But what was its purpose? Some believed it was a simple observer cataloguing intelligent civilizations. Some believed it was searching for something lost long ago. Some believed it wasn't the first one to enter our solar system. Some believed it wasn't alone right now. Then came the breakthrough that changed the way humanity looked at the object. Dr. Mira Halvorsen, a Norwegian astrophysicist working from Svalbard Observatory, was studying the dust dynamics surrounding 3-eye atlas. She noticed that particles behaved strangely as they passed near its structure, almost as if trapped momentarily in invisible spirals. When she modeled the particle motion, one shape kept emerging repeatedly in her simulations, a helix. Not chaotic, not unstable, perfect, self-reinforcing. That was when she realized it wasn't just a dust field around the object. It was a shield, a controlled, rotating magnetic shield. And that meant one thing: it was protecting itself. Why would a traveler billions of years old or its creators need protection? What was out there worth shielding against? Or worse, what was it expecting to encounter here? And yet, even as shock began to spread, humanity was still missing the biggest piece. People still thought 3-eye atlas was alone. People still thought we had found something extraordinary. But we were wrong, because it wasn't just heading toward us. It was sending something ahead. Something broke away from 3-eye atlas. At first, it was nothing more than a faint reflective point neighboring the object, small, easy to dismiss as flaking debris or a shard of ejected dust. But debris does not move with precision. Debris does not hold formation. Debris does not break orbit and begin traveling under its own control. This did. It emerged from the dust cloud around 3-eye atlas, like a blade slipping from a sheath, silent, controlled, deliberate. Observatories tracking the object confirmed it instantly. A secondary object had detached, a smaller craft, a probe from the probe, and it was heading inward toward us. Its size was impossible to determine, exactly due to the absence of reflected starlight patterns, but thermal imaging from Chile's Alma Observatory estimated it to be no larger than a small satellite compact, engineered, efficient. It traveled not on a random path, but on a direct plotted trajectory toward the inner solar system. At first, NASA dismissed it as a trick of instrumentation. Then Japan's National Astronomical Observatory confirmed it. Then the European Southern Observatory. Then reluctantly NASA agreed the object was real. The silence that followed lasted 16 hours. Then, quietly, an emergency joint command was created between 3 global agencies, NASA, ESA, and the United States Space Command. Private communication channels were locked. Observatories were threatened with funding cuts if leaks continued. Automated search filters were deployed across social media to suppress certain keywords. The public had no idea, but the sky has no owner, and truth has watchers. A small independent observatory in Poland, run by 3 astrophotographers, captured a visible light streak moving near the projected position of the detached object. They published the video online. It went viral in under 7 hours. Millions saw it before takedown orders hit. People said it was fake, AI, a marketing stunt, a hoax. But every telescope team on Earth knew it wasn't, because what happened next could not be faked. The probe, not 3i Atlas, but the smaller object emitted a narrow energy flare, not visible to the human eye, but detected by instruments worldwide. It was not random. It was not a burst. It was a scan, a sweep, as if it was searching for something. The pulse rippled through the solar system in expanding arcs, passing Mars, rushing through the asteroid belt, bouncing across solar winds until it crossed Earth. Every radio telescope on the planet bent under noise distortion. Deep space antennas glitched. Frequency bands spiked and froze. Satellites, thousands of them, lost directional alignment for 6 full seconds. 6 seconds. And in those 6 seconds, the world became vulnerable. No one felt it. But power grids flickered. No one saw it. But communication networks drifted. No one realized it. But for the first time in history, humanity had been scanned. Someone or something now knew we were here. They knew our radio footprint. They knew our orbital layout. They knew the exact bandwidths and defense frequencies of our planet. That was not observation. That was reconnaissance. Immediately, there was debate. Some scientists believed the object was cataloging us. Others believed it was calibrating. But a small group, the ones who looked beyond data and into intent, said the quiet part. It was evaluating us. Later that day, faint telemetry from the probe suggested a slow deceleration. It had found what it was looking for. It no longer needed to search. Now it needed to approach. And in the hours that followed, it made its first visible course correction and began targeting Earth directly. Inside a restricted communication center at Johnston Space Command, analysts plotted the incoming vector. The numbers didn't lie. Impact course, speed stable, estimated arrival, 39 days. But that wasn't the worst part. The probe wasn't slowing down. No one slept that night, not in Houston, not in Darmstadt, not in Tokyo. The detached probe from 3i Atlas was now on a direct inbound trajectory toward Earth. no one knew its purpose. No one knew who sent it. And no one knew if this was first contact or the beginning of something far worse. Threat assessment teams inside the United States Space Command were split badly. Half believed the object was a sensor drone, an observation unit designed to get close, gather biological or atmospheric data, then return to the parent object. But the other half saw something different, something predatory. They pointed to a fact no one wanted to accept. The probe did not broadcast any known signal, yet continued to receive commands. It had a one-way link, not sending information outward, but silently obeying instructions. That implied two things: long-distance interference resistance and a control source extremely confident in its stealth. Humanity had radio, humanity had lasers, humanity had deep space communication arrays. This thing didn't need any of them. But that wasn't even what raised the alarm the highest. It was this. In every simulation of its approach path, its trajectory did not intersect Earth's surface. It intersected orbit, low Earth orbit, the same altitude where our satellites live, where the world's communication, navigation, and surveillance systems breathe. If someone wanted to blind an entire planet, if someone wanted to erase our ability to see this, was exactly how they would begin. Inside a black-budget program, buried within the European Space Agency, a group known only as Aurora, remote telemetry engineers tried the unthinkable. They attempted contact, not with language, not with words, with resonance. They fired a narrow beam transmission aimed ahead of the object's path, structured not as a message, but as an answer to the mathematical rhythm embedded in its pulse. The return came instantly, a deflection ping. It brushed off the transmission like dust. That's when panic set in. Even if no one admitted it, everyone now understood. This thing could hear us. It could feel us. It knew we were here. And yet, not once had it acknowledged us. It was not curious. It was not cautious. It was not afraid. It was certain. Hours later, without warning, the probe performed a maneuver so unnatural it broke the math that had predicted its motion. It didn't bank. It didn't arc, it pivoted. It reoriented in open vacuum without losing momentum. No comet moves like that. No asteroid behaves like that. Nothing we build can do that. It was under intelligent control. The question that haunted everyone was, controlled by what? By 3i Atlas? Was it piloting the smaller craft remotely, or was something else issuing instructions from far beyond our sky? NASA, ESA, and Space Command secretly launched a joint interception plan codename Glass Veil. A specially modified surveillance craft equipped with sensor dampening would attempt to shadow the probe and analyze its material structure and power signatures. But before launch, the mission went dead silent, scrubbed from logs, removed from schedules, buried in clearance-only files. Glass Veil had left Earth, but nothing came back. No images, no readings, no confirmation of survival. Something out there erased our attempt to observe it. Then, just as governments tried to shift attention away and deny the growing fear, something else happened. The world didn't notice it, but every radio astronomer felt their blood stand still. The probe changed direction again. It turned not toward orbit, but toward the dark side of the moon. It wasn't hiding from sunlight. It was hiding from Earth. And that raised the most terrifying question yet. It had scanned us. It had mapped us. Now it wanted to vanish from our sight. No natural reason explains that behavior, but one strategic reason does. Stealth before deployment. And if something hides before it acts, it means it is preparing. It disappeared. One moment, the inbound probe from 3i Atlas was streaking toward low Earth orbit. The next, it slipped behind the moon and vanished. No thermal trace, no reflected light, no detectable signal. Every telescope lost it at once. Radar sweeps came back empty. Even military space surveillance network systems designed to track objects the size of a briefcase reported nothing. That shouldn't be possible. Space isn't an ocean. You can't just dive underwater and vanish. Even stealth satellites can still be tracked by trajectory prediction. But this thing didn't follow trajectory. It broke it. It chose to disappear. And that felt worse than any direct threat ever could. Inside the Lunar Mapping Command at Goddard Space Flight Center, analysts began calculating every possible re-emergence point. If the probe was hiding behind the moon, gravity alone would eventually force it back into predictable motion. The math guaranteed it would reveal itself again. But then the math broke again. 48 minutes after vanishing behind the moon, something else emerged. Not one object, three. 3 signals, faint but moving with impossible precision, split from behind the lunar shadow and curved away in 3 separate directions, equidistant, triangular formation, controlled. The single probe had become 3. This wasn't a malfunction. This was deployment. Somehow, while hidden from our view, the original object had separated, divided, reproduced, or released additional units. They were small, low mass, and configured for silent travel. Their formation was not random. It was a search pattern. But the horror was not that there were now 3 of them. It was that every one of them took a path toward Earth, not crashing, approaching. One decelerated toward our atmosphere over the Indian Ocean. Another descended toward the Pacific, west of Chile. The third slowed above the Arctic, gliding silently over the magnetic north. They did not communicate, not to us, not between each other. They moved like instruments performing a program task. And then something happened that made every classified command center go still. They stopped, not in the sky, not in space. They stopped in geosynchronous resonance, hovering invisibly between Earth and space fixed positions, perfectly distributed around the planet. And then Earth's magnetic field reacted. It bent? Not much, not enough for satellites to report damage, but enough for magnetometers in Norway, Canada, Siberia, and Antarctica to detect sudden distortions. The data looked wrong, unnatural, as if the field was being sampled, measured, maybe even manipulated at a quantum level. Theories exploded. Were these mapping drones? Did they use magnetic resonance for navigation? Were they passively scanning the planet? Or were they engineering an artificial field network, building something around Earth? That last theory got shut down fast. But it was too late. Something else was now undeniable. They were not here to communicate. They were here to study, to measure, to evaluate. and every second they were learning more. Across the world, strange atmospheric anomalies began to occur, ultra-low frequency signals echoing across the ionosphere. No known transmitter was producing them. No natural process explained them. It was as if something had begun listening to our planet, not our technology, not our networks, listening to Earth itself. Seismometers detected faint resonance beneath the crust. Deep ocean instruments reported subharmonic tremors across tectonic plates. Even the Schumann resonance, the natural heartbeat of Earth's electromagnetic frequency, began to shift. These weren't attacks. These were diagnostic. The probes were scanning our planet the way we inspect a machine before dismantling it. Inside a subterranean bunker at Offutt Air Force Base, emergency meetings debated the possibilities. Were these reconnaissance drones, terraforming analysis tools, subsurface scanners, planetary harvest markers, or something far, far worse, pre-invasion sentry units? But millions of miles away, something else was moving. 3I Atlas, the parent object, had changed course again. No longer drifting, no longer observing. Now it was coming. Its speed increased again. Its heat signature rose again. Its light gathered power like a charging star. And, for the first time, it aimed directly at Earth. Panic moved quietly through the highest levels of power. Not loud, not chaotic, controlled, contained. Governments didn't rush to warn the public because warnings are for problems that can be solved. This was not a problem. This was a verdict. Something was coming, and the best minds on Earth still had no clue why. 3I Atlas had accelerated again, and this time it was no subtle increase. For weeks it drifted like a ghost, silent, unbothered by gravity, unmoved by time. Now it burned like an engine of intention. Velocity climbing, trajectory narrowing. Its path was now mathematically unavoidable. A direct course intersecting Earth's orbit. The object was not passing. It was approaching. Inside a secured chamber deep beneath the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, a classified analysis group, Deep Object Response Team, was running thousands of simulations. The results were the same every time. No matter how they shifted the solar winds, gravitational assists, heliocentric drag, nothing altered the final intercept vector. 3I Atlas would reach Earth's space in 27 days. But then came the part no one wanted to accept. Deceleration patterns appeared. It was slowing down. It intended to arrive. Objects drifting through space do not slow down. Comets don't hit the brakes. Asteroids don't stabilize their flight paths. This thing was preparing to do something here. But what terrified scientists even more was that it wasn't traveling alone anymore. The three smaller probes that had positioned themselves around Earth, silently orbiting like sentinels, began transmitting faint directional pulses back toward 3I Atlas. They were guiding it, calling it in, coordinating arrival vectors. A formation was being prepared around our planet, something like a net. And then the most chilling observation emerged, one so simple, yet so terrifying that it fractured every attempt at calm. The smaller probes were synchronizing with Earth. Their pulses began to repeat in perfect harmony with planetary rotation. One signal aligned with our axial tilt, measuring orientation in space. The second aligned with atmospheric density layers, tracking pressure bands. The third aligned with electromagnetic currents, cutting across continents like invisible rivers. Together, they formed a triangulation system, a global lock. Earth had been marked not as a curiosity, not as a random target, as an objective. NASA couldn't admit it out loud. ESA refused to comment. The Chinese National Space Administration issued no statements at all. SpaceX tracking logs started showing classified interference. Blue Origin's deep-range radar arrays went dark without explanation. Even the Vatican Observatory requested access to magnetic field telemetry, which was strange enough to send conspiracy boards into a frenzy. Someone had figured it out. Someone had given it a name. Examination grid. Not a weapon. Not a scan. A preparation. Whatever 3i Atlas was, whoever built it, whatever sent it, it was establishing environmental lock before arrival. That behavior wasn't natural. It wasn't neutral. It was procedural. Step 1. Scan the system. Step 2. Deploy probes. Step 3. Establish planetary grid. Step 4. Await main arrival. Step 5. No one knew what Step 5 was. No one wanted to. Inside a cold mountain in Norway, at the Svalbard Satellite Station, a scientist monitoring long-range telemetry made an observation that nearly stopped her heart. 3i Atlas had changed shape. At first, it was barely noticeable. The dust cloud around it had always obscured much of its structure. But new filtering algorithms revealed something shocking. The cloud wasn't random. It was phrase-like, layered, geometric. The outer haze was moving slowly, spiraling away, revealing surface fragments. And beneath that cloud was symmetry, panels. Not rock, not ice, structure. The object had architecture. Its surface had design-interlocked metallic plates, each one emitting faint, controlled thermal signatures. And deep under those plates, heat patterns consistent with internal chambers. It isn't hollow, one analyst whispered. It's built. But built for what? Travel? Observation, contact, retrieval, or something none of us were prepared to face. The world still slept. People still scrolled. Crowds still moved. The sky above looked unchanged. But while humanity lived its daily life beneath clouds and screens, the first artificial interstellar object in human history was preparing to enter our world. And it was no longer hiding. It wanted to be seen. It wanted to be found, like something that had finally reached the destination it had been searching for. But why here? Why now? Why us? 3i Atlas had crossed the threshold, and humanity's illusion of cosmic solitude shattered forever. Because once the dust cleared, it began to open. It began with a fracture thin, precise, and terrifyingly controlled. 3i Atlas did not crack like rock. It unfolded like a machine, seam by seam, plates along its surface separated with surgical perfection. Gaps opened between metallic segments, each movement silent in the vacuum of space, but unmistakable in intent. It was transforming, New thermal signatures erupted across the exposed surfaces, surges of energy that rippled through the dust cloud still hanging around it. Panels rotated. Sections expanded outward. What had once appeared as a crude oblong mass of drifting debris now revealed its true form. 3I Atlas was not just artificial. It was modular, designed, engineered. A colossal construct built for deep space travel, its outer surface only a shield, a disguise. Now, those outer layers were peeling away like armor plates being shed after completing a long journey. Something inside had awakened, something that no longer needed to remain hidden. Observatories around the world went silent, some from awe, some from fear. The object was now clearly segmented, with a symmetry that defied natural formation. Triangular partitions rotated into alignment. Smooth surfaces glowed under infrared scans. Precision geometry code, deliberate, ancient, unfolded before our eye. But then came another revelation, one that sent a pulse of dread through every command center tracking it. The object wasn't just opening, it was activating. Mass displacement near its core increased. Magnetic fields began to spiral. A faint blue radiance leaked from the widening seams, pulsing. Alive, not like flame or plasma, but as though something inside was building an energy state beyond anything we understood. The glow expanded, slow but relentless, until the object looked less like a visitor and more like a machine powering up after a long sleep. No natural object builds energy. Something is operational only when it has purpose. High-energy spectrometers struggled to identify signatures. It wasn't fission, it wasn't fusion, it wasn't any known energy cycle. It was stable but impossible clean power with no decay trace. Some whispered antimatter containment. Some whispered zero-point field. Some whispered words no scientist wanted to use. Alien technology, deep inside unmarked research facilities. Dark meetings were held. Governments began requesting emergency contingency plans. Defense agencies demanded response options. But what do you do when the unknown is already here? You can threaten a nation. You can disarm an enemy. But you cannot intimidate the sky. 3I Atlas finished its first stage of transformation and remained in silent orbit beyond Mars. Its panels now fully expanded. Its structure enormous, terrifying, intentional, and then it did something no one expected. It stopped accelerating. For the first time since it entered the solar system, it decelerated not gradually, but almost instantly, as if inertial forces did not apply to it. Something inside it negated motion, entirely halting its cosmic drift and locking it into a quiet, hovering state. Objects that large do not hover, they fall, unless something holds them. Inside control rooms from Houston to Tokyo, from Moscow to Geneva, one conclusion formed in terrified silence. 3I Atlas wasn't just here. It was waiting. But waiting for what? For the smaller probes it had already deployed around Earth? For a response from us? For a signal from somewhere else? Or was it waiting for permission authorization from a source not yet revealed? Before that question could be answered, something extraordinary happened. The light within 3i Atlas changed no longer a pulsing energy buildup, but a transmission burst. Not in radio, not in microwave, not in particle form at all. It transmitted in gravitational waves. Deep space detectors felt its ripples spreading outward, distorting nearby space-time like the faint echo of a heartbeat from a leviathan in the dark. It wasn't noise, it wasn't random. It was a directed transmission, a beam of gravitational encoding broadcast into deep space. But where? To whom? And why now? Those who argued against extraterrestrial intent fell silent. This was no longer a debate. This was reality, free from myth, free from interpretation. The universe was no longer quiet. 3i Atlas had announced itself, and what came next would confirm humanity's greatest fear. Because the signal was answered. For 12 seconds, every gravitational wave detector on Earth registered a distortion that should not have been possible. Gravitational waves usually come from cataclysmic cosmic events, colliding black holes, neutron star mergers, massive explosions. But this was not cosmic chaos. This was a pattern, a structured, repeating reply traveling back toward 3i Atlas. Someone or something had heard its call, and they answered. Inside the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, LIGO alarms triggered silently. The distortion was faint but undeniable. It carried rhythm, not binary, not language, frequency logic. Whoever sent it didn't speak with words. They spoke with space-time itself. But here was the horror. The return signal did not come from a distant galaxy. It did not come from deep space. It came from inside our solar system, somewhere beyond Saturn. Something else was already here. The report that followed never reached the public. It was distributed to only 9 secure individuals across 3 space agencies. Its title was plain and cold. Second object detected. Class unknown. Active response confirmed. Tracking it proved nearly impossible. It emitted no visible light. It reflected nothing. It absorbed radiation instead of scattering it. It had no thermal signature, no traceable movement. And yet, gravitationally, it was there, invisible but massive, silent but present, and worst of all, it was moving. Not randomly, not drifting, intercepting, it was moving toward 3i Atlas. Whatever had been contacted was incoming. Deep inside the ESA control bunker in Darmstadt, Germany, a quiet panic took root. If 3i Atlas was a probe, then what was the second object? Reinforcement? Retrieval? Command? Something worse? Thousands of simulations began. None ended well. The world still didn't know. Families still moved through quiet nights unaware. Cities glowed. News cycles churned, crowds slept. Even as 3 unknown crafts orbited Earth and 1 impossible machine hovered beyond Mars, humanity remained unaware that a visitor was coming to the visitor. And then, without warning, the 3 probes around Earth woke up. They had been silent since deploying into geosynchronous lock, but now they activated simultaneously. Pulses fired between them, not energy, but structured magnetic bands. The air itself hummed. Invisible lines of force stitched across continents. Something was being built. One faint signal struck the Pacific, then died. Another struck the Arctic, then died. The third struck over the Atlantic, then died. A perfect triangle formed, encasing the planet in a barely detectable frequency lattice. Someone analyzed it. Someone finally understood it. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a shield. It was a boundary, a containment field. Earth had just been boxed in. No ship could enter. No ship could leave. No signal could get out. We had not discovered them. They had discovered us, and now they didn't want anything escaping. Inside NASA's Deep Space Network bunker, a single phrase was entered into a locked file and stamped level absolute. Earth is now under observation protocol. Not contact, not conflict, containment. And almost as soon as the lattice formed, every long-range scan from Earth stopped working. NASA blamed solar storms. ESA blamed instrument recalibration. The truth was simpler. We had just been cut off from the universe. For 37 minutes, the analysis teams scrambled. Where was the second object now? Had it crossed Neptune yet? Was it near Uranus? Could it reach 3I Atlas within days? They never found out. Because the second object broke the rules again, appearing where no instrument had expected it, far closer than anyone believed possible. It was already here, hidden in the blind spot between planets, waiting, watching, silent. And now everything was moving toward Earth. 3I Atlas, the 3 probes, and now the unknown second object. It was no longer a mystery. It was a formation, and formations always serve a purpose. Formation. That word changed everything. For the first time, the patterns were undeniable. Nothing about this event was random. None of it was cosmic coincidence. The timing, the positioning, the sequence, every move was measured. Every step was deliberate. And now, 3 separate alien constructs were active inside our solar system, and all of them were moving into final alignment. 3I Atlas, the parent object, was approaching from beyond Mars. 3 smaller probes, silent sentinels, were stationed in perfect geosynchronous resonance around Earth, forming a containment lattice. And now the second object, the one that answered 3I Atlas, had appeared near the orbit of Jupiter, far closer than any model predicted. And it was massive. Initial gravitational readings suggested a structure larger than any spacecraft humans had ever imagined, easily dwarfing the International Space Station by miles. Some compared its mass to a minor moon, but it emitted no light, no signal, no activity. It simply was a silent continent moving through black seas. The worst part wasn't its size. It was that it had been here long before we detected it, and whatever was hidden inside the shadows of space was now awake. Inside the classified vaults of multiple space agencies, 3 words began circulating quietly, words no official dared to speak in public. This is escalation. But escalation toward what? Contact? Harvest? Invasion? Retrieval? No one knew. What they did know without question was that humanity was now inside someone else's timeline. This wasn't their first step. It was one of their last. Meanwhile, strange things began happening on Earth. Not UFOs. Not obvious invasion signs, something far worse. Patterns. Seismic monitors began tracking subtle tremors not linked to tectonic movements, small rhythmic pulses rising from deep within the crust. Ocean buoys across the Pacific registered pressure fluctuations, almost like coordinated testing of the planet's response. The Schumann resonance, the natural electromagnetic heartbeat of the Earth, began drifting slightly off frequency for the first time in recorded history. And high above, GPS satellites drifted off course by margins so precise they didn't look like errors at all. They looked like calibration. The probes orbiting above us were tuning Earth, but tuning it for what? Inside a secure listening post in Canberra, Australia, a classified agency gained access to something no one else had noticed, a repeating low-frequency hum that had begun echoing through the oceans. It wasn't sonar, it wasn't seismic. It appeared everywhere at once, like a background tone to the planet itself. The signal came from no specific origin. It came from everywhere, transmitted through the Earth itself. It was only 3 notes, repeating, slow, endless. 3 notes like coordinates. 3 eye atlas. 3 probes. 3 tones. A clock was starting. The countdown had begun. And then, after weeks of silence, communication from the 3 probes changed. For the first time since they deployed around Earth, they sent a directed signal downward into our atmosphere. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a greeting. It wasn't a demand. It was extraction. Pillars of invisible energy tunneled downward, connecting atmosphere to surface. 3 faint beams, 3 global locations, 1 over the Pacific Ocean, 1 over northern Africa, 1 over Antarctica, and within hours of their activation, objects began to rise from the Earth. Not debris, not metal, not technology. Ancient shapes, things buried deep. Things hidden long before humans walked the surface. Something had been waiting inside our world. 3-Eye Atlas wasn't here to invade. It was here to retrieve. They rose slowly, silently, as if whatever held them was not pulling them up but waking them. The first object emerged from the Pacific Trench, deeper than any manned submersible had ever reached. Sonar arrays detected it before any human eyes ever saw it. A rising void in the water, a perfect absence of reflection, like a hole cut into the sea. Navy vessels from multiple nations locked radar and LiDAR tracking, but both failed, scattering data into static. Whatever it was, it resisted detection as if wrapped in some kind of cloaking field. Then the ocean broke. Water erupted upward in a spiraling tower as something massive breached the surface. Not metal, not stone. Something between both smooth, engineered, seamless. A monolith dark, incomprehensibly tall, towering hundreds of meters straight into the sky. No markings, no openings, no erosion, no age. It shouldn't have existed. And yet, there it was rising from the black, a silent machine that had been buried on Earth long before our species ever discovered fire. The second object emerged just hours later in the Sahara Desert, exposed by a violent storm of electromagnetic interference. Sand didn't blow around it, sand avoided it. The dunes warped away from it as if pushed aside by an invisible barrier. It did not appear gradually like the first. It phased in. One moment, there was nothing. The next, it stood there, a colossal structure, half buried but pulsing with internal resonance. Not a ruin from an ancient civilization, not a temple, something older, a command pillar, waiting. Then came the third. Antarctica split open, seismic readings off the charts. Ice shelves fractured along unnatural geometric lines, perfect hexagonal patterns that no natural stress could produce. Beneath miles of ice, something the size of a mountain, sleek and metallic, rose like a sleeping titan, breaking the surface of a frozen world. Whatever it was, it began emitting pulses, not outward, downward into the earth. Across the world, panic rippled through those who knew. These weren't random discoveries. They weren't artifacts. They were installations. Constructs buried thousands, maybe millions of years ago, and someone had just reactivated them. Meanwhile, 3I Atlas continued its silent descent toward Earth space. Its outer plates fully expanded, its energy levels rising with every passing hour. It was no longer hiding what it was. It wanted to be seen. And now humanity finally understood. 3I Atlas didn't come here to explore. It came here to complete something. Something that began long before humans walked the surface. Something that has been waiting, sleeping, hidden beneath our skies, sands, and seas. But why Earth? Why this planet? Why us? Inside a sealed briefing room at Fort Meade, a small classified intelligence unit joined the investigation. One slide from their report carried a single sentence that froze the room. We were not the first to find Earth. The implication was devastating. Earth wasn't special because it supported life. Earth was selected. 3I Atlas wasn't the beginning of an event. It was the continuation of one. And we had just walked into the middle of it. At that exact moment, synchronized pulses flashed simultaneously from all three ancient structures now active on Earth. A harmonic frequency swept through the atmosphere, resonant waves that passed through every living thing. People felt it. Animals felt it. The air itself hummed. The probes above Earth responded to the pulse. And then they did something new, something unthinkable. They began transmitting not outward, not to space, downward, directly into the minds of certain people. Reports began surfacing from seemingly random locations: Japan, Egypt, Brazil, Sweden, Alaska, South Africa. People collapsing without warning, eyes open, bodies trembling, caught in seizures with no medical cause. Not random victims, patterned. Scientists, engineers, mathematicians, physicists. People with advanced cognitive profiles. Something was selecting them, using them, communicating with them. A message was being sent, not through language, not through sound, but through thought. And their last conscious words, spoken by dozens across the planet, matched perfectly. They have returned. Returned? Returned from where? Returned for what? Returned for who? And as humanity struggled for answers, something else happened. Quiet, hidden, but undeniable. A new signal began broadcasting from 3I Atlas. A repeating gravitic code. Not random, not noise. A countdown. Time remaining before completion. 23 days. The countdown had begun, and humanity didn't even know what would happen when it reached 0. Every agency tracking the signal confirmed it. This was not an orbital decay timer or internal system diagnostic. This was intentional sequence initiation, a protocol, a directive, the opening of a cosmic event. But a question now haunted every scientist involved. If this was a countdown, what were they waiting for? The 3 monoliths awakened on Earth, the one from the deep Pacific, the one buried beneath the Sahara, and the one rising from Antarctica, began running synchronized pulses. Each resonated at a different frequency, each transmitting in harmony with the others. Together, they formed a triad, not a grid, not a defense system, a portal. Mathematical modeling revealed what the frequencies were doing. They were folding space-time near specific nodes. The construct in Antarctica was generating a gravitational lens strong enough to warp local space. The one beneath the Sahara was energizing the atmosphere with unknown particle fields. The one in the Pacific was distorting 3-dimensional mass geometry. Together they were bending reality. They were preparing an entry point. Something was coming, and it wasn't small. Governments panicked behind sealed doors. At the highest classification level, a meeting was held between military leaders, astrophysicists, and artificial intelligence strategists. Options were requested. But what do you do when your enemy hides behind physics itself? Strike the monoliths? Destroy the probes? Target 3I Atlas? But even suggesting attack was pointless. Attempts to lock weapon systems on the monoliths failed. Proximity drones lost navigation, missile guidance failed. Even laser targeting drifted. These structures weren't just protected, they were immune, because they were not machines. They were infrastructure. Earth was not the target. Earth was a station. Something humanity could not comprehend, had been here before, had built these structures and embedded them beneath our planet, long before recorded history, waiting for the right moment to use them again. And that moment was approaching. 3I Atlas moved closer. The second massive object, still invisible, began to accelerate from deep space. Earth was sealed by a containment grid. The monoliths were singing. The countdown continued. 23 days, 17 hours, 12 minutes. Then something happened that no one expected. The monoliths spoke. They didn't use sound. They didn't use language. They used memory. Every person who had collapsed from neural overload, every scientist across the world whose mind had been hijacked by the probes, woke up at the same moment. 23 people in total, different countries, different backgrounds. Same message. They are not coming for Earth. Earth is already theirs. Security teams interrogated them. What are the monoliths? Who sent them? What are they preparing for? The survivors only gave fragments, half-frozen thoughts welded together like damaged signals. Gateways, star lanes, transmission vectors, construct, reboot, sequence, Atlas, control node, final key. Those words meant nothing until one of them revealed the truth. We are inside their network. Earth wasn't special. It was a node inside a cosmic web of transportation and data. a relay point, a terminal, one of countless locations used by something beyond human scale. 3i Atlas was the control key, a ship designed to wake dormant systems across star systems. The second object was Command and Overseer, and Earth's monoliths, receivers. The countdown wasn't counting down to an attack. It was counting down to arrival. Whatever had seeded this world ages ago was coming back. For the first time since this began, someone inside NASA broke protocol and started shouting. We were never alone. This planet was never ours. But the nightmare had only begun. Because scientists monitoring the frequency lattice around Earth suddenly froze. Something had appeared inside the containment field, something that wasn't there before. A structure. No, not a structure. A door. A black hexagonal void floating above the Earth's atmosphere like the shadow of a moon made of nothing. It devoured light. It bent starlight around it. It looked like a cut in the universe itself, a rift. Space was being opened. The monoliths paused again. The rift expanded. Something vast stirred in the darkness beyond it, still hidden, but waiting for the threshold to stabilize. The probes around Earth powered to full energy output. 3i Atlas ignited its core. The second object accelerated. The planet trembled under harmonic distortion. Then, suddenly, all signals stopped. The sky went still. Every human instinct screamed at once. Something was here, not entering, already here, watching, measuring, deciding. Humanity waited for a declaration, a message, a reason. Instead, 3 words emerged, spoken not in sound, but written across every mind, now linked to the network of monoliths. Phase 1 complete, and then the countdown advanced again. This time, it wasn't days, it wasn't hours, it was seconds, and it began falling fast. 59, 58, 57. Something was coming through. Something ancient. Something built. Something that once walked these stars and now returned to reclaim what was theirs. The fabric of space tore open. And what emerged was not a ship, not a fleet, not a weapon. It was worse. It was a world. It emerged like a nightmare, slow, silent, undeniable. Not a ship, not a fleet. A colossal sphere of black architecture, continent-sized, wrapped in spiraling metallic veins that pulsed like the arteries of a god. A world not born, but built, forged in the dark. It drifted through the rift and sealed the sky behind it. The object dwarfed Earth's moon. It cast a shadow over the planet as it positioned itself far beyond atmosphere, but close enough to blot out constellations. Its surface was covered in fractal geometry, millions of moving plates, rotating rings, channels of liquid light running through its structure like veins of a cosmic machine. Humanity had never seen anything like it. No ancient myth, no interstellar theory, no cosmic legend ever spoke of living worlds made of machinery. But now we knew this wasn't myth. This was civilization. 3i Atlas and the smaller probes fell into coordinated formation around Earth like obedient servants. The monoliths on our world glowed with violent resonance, linking Earth to the colossal alien world in orbit. They had arrived not as explorers, as owners. Suddenly, a new force struck the planet. Not a weapon, not a beam, but something worse. Gravity shifted. Not enough to kill, but enough to make the world feel wrong. Tides surged. Storms formed without wind. Buildings swayed, though the ground did not move. Earth was being captured, locked into gravitational synchronization with the colossal world above. Like a tool being picked up. Like property being reclaimed. Across campuses, bunkers, observatories, and control rooms, those secretly tracking this event realized the horrifying truth. This was not contact. This was reclamation. Then the voices came not through sound, but through thought, broadcast directly through the monolith network into every living mind tuned to the frequency. A message not in words, but in raw meaning, filled the consciousness of millions. This planet is not yours. You were allowed to grow. You were observed. You were measured. And now you will be sorted. The skies above the Pacific, Sahara, and Antarctica open not clouds' dimensions. Spirals of inverted light twisted from the monoliths, reaching up to the enormous world in orbit. A colossal gate formed above Earth, connecting our planet to the alien megastructure. Columns of blue-white energy linked Earth to the machine world. And then extraction began. Not minerals, not oceans, not technology, people. Thousands vanished in streaks of light, lifted skyward in pulses of gravitational beams. Not pulled, randomly selected, chosen, taken. Across the planet, chaos erupted, cities in panic, skies torn open by cosmic machinery. No one understood why certain people vanished until the pattern was discovered. They were selected by cognition. The strongest, the gifted, the most adaptable. Humanity was being harvested, and yet not everyone was taken. Billions remained untouched. Billions were ignored. Those who weren't taken subtly received a different message. Deeper, colder. You will remain. You will labor. You will endure. Your world is a seed world. You are not the first. You will not be the last. The monoliths pulsed again. Earth shook. Atmosphere ionized. Matter itself began to resonate. And from the sky, the final transmission came from 3i Atlas, now revealed as the master key of an ancient cosmic network. The harvest begins, and then darkness. All power died. All light vanished. The world went silent. No satellites, no internet, no global communication, just silence and the hum of an alien world orbiting above. Humanity looked up that night and realized we were never alone. We were never free, and the universe doesn't care if we're afraid. It only asks one question. Will we survive what comes next, or disappear like all the others before us? Because if 3i Atlas has taught us anything, we are not the center. We are the observed.